So we're through with the slower stuff building up to the floats, and now we're at the floating place. And so there are a bunch of different ways to take it. It depends on your student, so adjust accordingly. So one thing to remember is that when you were doing all those hops along the way and you were having them pull up along the way, that's precursor to float, right? Because what you're doing is you're getting longer and longer and longer in the water, and then you're pulling yourself up. So we are moments away from float. So if your people are comfortable with that, and if they're good at spreading out, and if you haven't already moved them, then the thing to do is say, good, we're comfortable with our face in the water. Let's take what you already know how to do, which is going to be put your face in the water, lay out with those hands out in front of you, fall forward, let your feet come up off the ground just a little, pull yourself back up. So we're going to float. And now we're floating. That's the first part of that. That's a way for people who are comfortable with the pushes. If you have people who aren't comfortable with the pushes yet, keep working with them, but you can bring them here and you can say there's another way to do this. In fact, we got a couple. So if you have people who are comfortable with face in the water and they can spin, you can start what's going to move towards the ball float, right? So you can take a good breath, put your face in the water, spin around. And get them to work on picking up their feet just a little or spinning around on a tiptoe like we did before, but with their face in the water. As they come off that ground, that's the start of float again. That's moving them there for them to begin to see, wow, I can't do this on land. This water really is a different space. We begin to build off that, okay? For the people who aren't ready for those, we're gonna do the classic against the wall float. So, for this guy, you come against the wall, and it can depend. If you've got somebody who's really spooked, you can just have them right here, just hanging onto the wall, and get them to come up and stand up, and then pull their feet back up against the wall with the tops of their feet and their knees against the wall, and then pull up just a little and push back down and stand up. It's amazing what that does. We certainly use that with back float, but sometimes it works for the front float as well. The other thing you can do on the front float is have them hang onto the wall and scoot their feet back just a little until they're comfortable. And you'll find that the people who really float, their feet will start floating up on their own, and it may scare them a little. So predict it for them. Say, when you step back, your feet may start floating up. If they do and you get concerned about it, just use the wall to pull you in and stand back up here, and we'll do it until you're ready. Otherwise, where we're going, and just adapt it for your people, is we're going to come back here, we're going to get stretched out, we're going to step a little more, we're going to take a breath and put our face in the water and see what happens. And you're going to find different floats. It's really important here, really, really important, that you understand that the flat float on the water is not a good float. It's not the best float. It's not the float to be looked for, attempted. As long as you can float, as long as you can stay in the water with no energy at all, then we're good. You got a good float. If your float floats down, it's fine. If your float floats here, it's great. If you're anywhere in between, that's okay, as long as you can stay still and not be sinking towards the bottom. Okay, that's the trick. Anything, no matter angle, is good. Okay, so once you get that started and once you get them seeing it, let them back up, let them practice it. Eventually they get to the place where they're on their own thinking about letting go. You can tell them along the way to just kind of lightly touch it instead of grasp it for dear life. You'll find things like people grasp this for dear life, and when they do, they shove themselves way under the water, and it's because there's so much tension in their hands and their legs, and they're like this. No reason for that. Let them get used to relaxing and hanging on, but knowing that they don't have to grip this for dear life to get started. Eventually they'll back out, they'll get the float, and then if they decide to push off, guess what? We're back in the same place we were in, where we're pushing off here, we're laying out, we're full here, we're pushing down, and we're doing our recovery. They've already got that. So you just build off it. We were talking about floating forward and recovery. Every now and then you get somebody who actually does pretty good on the hops and even can do okay on the long hops, but when they start laying out, they start having a little bit of a challenge. And so the way we work that, I showed you against the wall, coming back a little bit, hanging onto the wall. And then once they're comfortable coming off the wall a little bit, you just get them to do the recovery using the same tools we've already worked on. And so eventually, and take your time with them, and it can go as long as you want, but eventually it looks like starting out away from the wall or starting on the wall and pushing out. I'll show you that one. Good breath, go into your float, push away from the wall, recovery. And that's it. If you've got somebody who's hopping on one leg and they're not pulling both feet up, really work with them on the recovery, especially if they float well, and remind them that this is really critical. If you're stuck with your face in the water and you don't know how to get up comfortably and you can't count on getting up comfortably, that's the same as drowning, right? That's the challenge. So we want you to come up, we want them to be comfortable coming up the whole time. So if they get to this place and they're okay with recovery now, but they don't like hanging out very long, they don't like that, then step back away from the wall, have them put their face in the wall and begin to move towards it. So I get them where they're going to be able to stretch out and touch the wall the first time. So we go, my feet are still on the ground. I'm solidly here, they're solidly here. There's no real risk. People who are really scared of leaning forward, and you will already know who they are because you've been working on the hops with them, will find that challenging. Scoot them up close, let them go slowly, let them work on the hops. If they're comfortable with it, begin to step back a little bit and have them step back. They put their face in the water, same thing, right? I just floated 6 whole inches, okay? That doesn't seem like a big deal to people when you think about long term, but that's a long time. This morning, in lane 3, I had a lady who had never floated, who didn't think it was possible for her to float. She's going to be a great floater. You can tell looking she's going to be a great floater. She floated about 6 inches and came up and said, I floated. I really floated. I actually floated. That's what you want. That's when it's just wonderful. It's like, yeah, she's got it. She owns it now. We don't have to fight with it. But she did it doing this, and she's not comfortable yet coming all the way back to the back to do that float. That's too long for her. But as long as she's here, she's okay with it. She can practice that the whole class if she wants to. It will be fine. That gets her comfortable until she can finally come back here and lean forward and float as slowly as she wants. To the wall, and we're all happy. As slow as they want, as much time as they want for this. If they get stuck or frustrated, back them back up to something they're successful at and move forward. So I'm here with Denise. We've talked a little about floating. I want to show you working with Denise and let you just watch what she does, just so you can see. So thank you for joining. Appreciate it very much. We're going to start with float. So you've done hops with me before. So what I want you to do is just show the hop with the full float. So instead of doing the hop before your feet are coming off the ground, I want you to lay all the way out, face in the water, which I'm not doing. Let your feet come up off the ground just naturally, and then do your recovery. And you're welcome to put your face in. There you go, good. So nice long. So this time, come back here again, and we'll start from here and just make sure it flies. Face in the water this time. Nice coast for a little while. Leave your feet up, but just let them come up naturally or drag naturally, however that works. And then do your recovery. But stay in your float 2 or 3 seconds. Okay? Okay. So nice and long. That gets her there. Float right. Everything we've done with those hops has been about floating. So now just go and stay in your float until you run out of air. Really 10, 15 seconds is more than enough. Okay. nice, that's beautiful. That's a really nice float. Perfect, come on up. Beautiful, there we go, nice float. So that's for the people who are comfortable with the hops and can move into that. But you will have some folks who aren't, so we'll show you what to do with those on the wall. So I'm gonna stand back here behind you, and what we're gonna do first is grab hold of the wall, step back until you just have to put your face in the water, okay, water. Get a good breath, and then just step back until your feet either stop or start floating up. And if whichever happens, just let it happen, okay? So good breath, and step back, and let's see what happens for you on your float. So, excellent. See, real nice and slow. Some people will stay down. It's okay. She comes up real nice and slow, nice and easy. You can check her hands, make sure she's not gripping the water, so the wall so tight it's hurting her fingers. Beautiful. Come on up. So that's nice and easy. That's where you get them. It takes people a while to get there sometimes. That's where we want to go. So let's do the same thing and just push off the wall this time. Once you get in that float, float just 3 or 4, maybe 5 seconds, and then do your recovery. Okay. So this is tricky. Some people will come right off the bat with this. Other people will hang on for dear life for a long time. Just let them do it at their pace. So again, Denise comes up real slow, but she comes up into a float. She's got this nice float tucked away in here, away from the wall. I stay close to them. It's not like you wander off, let them go, and then come on up. And then she's got the nice recovery that we've done the other places. Every now and then you'll get somebody who quite concretely pulls their hands first and then pulls their feet in. And it will be difficult for them to come up, especially if they're a super good floater. In that case, say, pull your knees in first, then your hands. That order is exactly opposite of what we do with the hops, but that will get them there.